Welcome to BrainStorm 9000.
Ladies and gentlemen of the internet, welcome to another episode of BrainStorm 9000, the podcast where we talk about your brain. I'm here with illustrious psychiatrist, Dr. Schultz.
Greeting, everybody. Right across from me is Master McMaster. That's how we call very warmly and appreciatively Jane McMaster.
Hello.
Who has master's degree in philosophy and hence
Thank you very much.
Master. And my name is Dr. Schultz. I'm a psychiatrist.
Yes, and today we are talking about a topic that Dr. Schultz feels very passionate about, right? So it's something that you as a psychiatrist face on a regular basis, the really common fear of taking psychopharmacological medication.
Well, as a doctor, I face all my life, even when I was a family physician back in Mother Russia. I'm from Moscow. People being very cautious with taking medications and actually trying not to take them.
Yeah.
So it's not only for psychotropic medications, for any medications, but since this office deals mostly with people who have emotional issues and come allegedly for medications to be prescribed, yes, psychotropic medications.
And Dr. Schultz, you represent the world of both conventional psychiatry and natural medicine, right?
Yes, one can say I've done it all. So I started my life as a medical prodigy in Russia, developed a heart transplant technique in frogs, was awarded for that. Then went on to study neurophysiology. In the United States, when I came, I did neuroendocrinology research at Columbia University. I also practiced homeopathy for a big portion of my life. It's a type of natural medicine. Was a vice president of both the American Institute of Homeopathy and National Center for Homeopathy. Worked at the Center for Health and Healing at Beth Israel Medical Center as a homeopath for 4.5 years. Prior to that, was a chief resident at the Department of Psychiatry there. And my last two jobs before I opened this office from which we are doing this podcast, I was first a medical director of the Department of Neuropsychiatry, and then I was an interim chairman of a large department of psychiatry. So I've done a lot of things in medicine, and that does include prescribing medication, but it also includes not prescribing medication. And actually, in my professional opinion, a good doctor is the doctor who is capable of not prescribing medication when it's not needed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like accurately assessing the situation to figure out what's necessary. So today we're talking about the fear of taking medication in general. And this is something that we've touched on before. We touched about it briefly in our episode about psychopharmacology, which is really interesting. If you haven't listened to that, you should go back and check it out.
Right.
And we've touched on it a few other times, but today we want to dig deeper into this issue that's actually like really pervasive and look at the myriad reasons that people have for not taking medication and for not even wanting to start or for wanting to stop after they start, reasons why people just don't want to be on it in general. So we're going to go through some different types of fears, right?
So for starters, I can share with you that I would be the first person who doesn't like to take medication. And in my personal life, I have to be on medication for high blood pressure since very early age. And the reason is because I have a particular type of hypertension. When I have certain physical issues in my body that would prevent me from having normalized, totally normal blood pressure, even if I was super skinny, living in a world free of stress, and doing everything that people think can help with hypertension. And also I have family history. My grandfather and my grandmother on the mother's side died one from a stroke, another one from a heart attack, but my mother lived to be 92 years old because she took medication for hypertension all her life.
There you go.
Other than that, I try not to take medication any chance I get.
Really?
Of course.
But you prescribe medication for a living. It's what you do.
Well, I don't prescribe medication for a living. Actually, what I do for a living, I'm a doctor. as a doctor, I help people to get well. As a psychiatrist, first I help people to understand together with me, if they're interested, what is really going on. And in more cases than one, and more cases than few, it turns out that people actually don't have what they come for and do not require medication.
Okay.
And luckily for us in psychiatry and in medicine in general, we have alternatives to medications. For example, in some cases, psychotherapy is good enough in psychiatry. We also have technologically developed approaches to different illnesses. People heard about this, in quotes, horrible thing, electric shock, but there is also transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Yes.
Okay. There is neurobiofeedback.
Which we've talked about before.
Yes. Heart rate variability that is utilized, for example, for treatment of anxiety disorders. So for a living, I help people to get well. I do not prescribe medications for a living.
Okay.
So I do not have vested interest in making people take drugs. I have a very big interest since I was a fifth grader to help people to get well the best I can. And since I decided that the brain is the main organ, so here I am. Helping people with
helping the brain however it needs, right?
From my perspective, from what I understand.
Right. Today we want to talk about like 3 different kinds of stages at which people are hesitant to take medication, right? So there's the first stage is before you've even seen a doctor. You just don't want to take medication. You have a lot of like information. You have your own personal beliefs, things that you've seen from the internet, from TV, whatever, that you don't even want to start that process.
Stage 2 would be when somebody is sitting in the doctor's office,
has decided to seek help,
and discussing what treatment options there are. And the third stage would be when medication was prescribed, let's say, by a doctor, in this case a psychiatrist, and then a person still decides not to take medication, or not to take all of the medication, or not to take all medications, because frequently people prescribe to patients more than one medication at the time.
Right. Okay, so let's start off with stage 1 with some of the reasons why people are just kind of afraid of medication in general, or instead of afraid, let's say averse to medication. I feel like one of the biggest reasons why people are hesitant to even seek help about taking medication and are just averse to it in general is because, at least for the realm of psychiatry, if you take medication, it means you have a mental illness, air quotes, and that mental health is like a personal flaw. It's something to be embarrassed about.
Well, it is very accurate. The stigma attached to seeing a psychiatrist is humongous. I can tell you that still there
Humongous.
Humongous. There are still countries in the world where people simply don't go to see a psychiatrist. I come from a country, even today, people don't go that much to see psychiatrists for depression, anxiety. Most of the people are seen by psychiatrists for severe cases of mental illness when everybody around them suffers and the person just obviously cannot function at all. I believe the same situation is true for China, where psychiatry is just coming in and they are utilizing, I think, an Italian model with still very open approach to mental illness. I don't have hard data on that, but I know that in Asia, generally speaking, people also do not appreciate mental illness that much.
And it's true here over in the Western Hemisphere as well, right?
In the United States of America, especially in large cities like New York, you have a psychiatrist and a couple of therapists per square inch.
Right.
It's very, very popular. But I can tell you the statistics are pretty awful. For example, in the United States, where I can tell you people are pretty much educated about mental illness, at least they know words: anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolar disorder. Only 1/3 of people who were diagnosed with serious mental illness are medicated, meaning they would need to take medication of some kind in order for them to be functional, and only 1/3 chooses to take medication. So there is a huge stigma attached.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the reasons, the way I see it, is because people are afraid of side effects of medications. And I don't know why I keep reading on the internet unwanted side effects. I mean, what kind of wanted side effects can you have?
Well, I guess some might be worse than others, right? Yeah, so and this is another very big reason, the fear of different side effects. And, you know, it could be because someone has like witnessed someone else on a medication and they heard about side effects, or you know, they had a bad experience with the medication, or like you see it just kind of on TV all the time. Like it's like almost like a trope, like, oh, this guy is on Prozac, so he's impotent, or like this person is on lithium, so they're like a zombie. You know, it's portrayed in a very specific way.
Right. Lithium, by the way, doesn't have sedating qualities. And not everybody who takes Prozac is impotent.
Yeah, of course. So there's a lot of misinformation out
right.
there.
But I can tell you that from where I stand, I think that the most severe blow to medications was dealt with multiple publications about increased suicidality in people who start taking antidepressants. And they specifically separated actually teenagers. And then it turns out that most of the scientific literature is not very reliable when they talk about it. So I went, and I keep going, and I will go to a number of professional meetings, and presentations there indicate that the selection of subjects for research in these publications was already wrong.
Okay.
So I cannot swear that Prozac cannot make somebody suicidal, right? Because this information is out, and the most difficult thing is to convince people that something is false, and I don't have any data to prove it.
Well, and that's one of those things that's like a stipulation on like the commercials for antidepressants.
Right.
It's one of those things they mumble along with like, this could make your insides fall out. You know, all those other terrible things.
Yeah, so of course it would make anybody fearful. Yeah, so I can tell you medications have a certain length of life inside of our body. In medicine, we use a term which is called half-life. This is the amount of time our body takes to remove 50% of the medication in the body. And very few medications have a very long life inside of our body. So if somebody develops unwanted, for God's sakes, side effects, they can do a very simple thing. Ideally, call whoever prescribed the medication and have a conversation. Super ideally, come in and talk and understand that there is a co-payment involved and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. But, I mean, your life is very important. Or, worst case scenario, just stop it. It's not very good to stop any medication suddenly, including antibiotics. But, worst comes to worst, you stop them.
Yeah, I guess for a lot of people, maybe just like the possibility that this could happen.
Right.
That any of these negative things could happen is enough to be like, I don't even want to try and see if that would work because I don't want to feel that discomfort.
Of course, I totally understand it. And as I said in the beginning of our show, I would be the last person to take medication unless I absolutely need it. So I can totally understand people. But if you need it, then you need to do something. For example, if somebody has a severe headache, they always have a choice to wait out the headache. And I met in my life a number of people who are capable to continue doing what they're doing with a headache. Some people can't.
I just don't want to.
Right. So then they take my favorite medication of all times. Of course, I'm joking. Advil, ibuprofen, right, or whatever. It's not a medical advice, people. Don't do. I'm not telling you to take ibuprofen for a headache. Just for example, or aspirin for the headache to go away so they can be functional. So the choice is, do you want to be functional, enjoy your life every single moment, or you want to be dysfunctional for a while, and this is the price you are willing to pay for not taking the medication. That is totally fine.
Right. And then, so what you're saying is that for people who don't really need medication, if they're afraid of side effects, like, okay, I mean, like, they don't have to try it. But if there's someone who could really benefit from taking a medication that could possibly have some of these side effects, and they want to try the medication, they shouldn't be afraid of the side effects. Like, that shouldn't be the reason why they don't try it, because there are things you can do to avoid those. You can talk to your physician, you can stop the medication, you can change the prescription, right?
Right. I can tell you a story that I like to tell people when we discuss whether they need or don't need to take a medication. In 2001, before 9/11, I was able to open, together with the Department of Family Medicine of Beth Israel Medical Center, a clinic in the Bronx for underprivileged children, where their parents were offered my services for free for treating children with attention deficit disorder and behavioral issues with homeopathy, a natural way of treatment. Mm-hmm. So after 9/11, it all unfortunately changed for many different reasons. But what's important is, so a Latino mother brought a child whose last name was Gonzalez, and the front desk immediately called him Speedy Gonzalez, like this famous character from the cartoon, because he couldn't literally sit. He was running around like crazy, literally, and screaming. He was about 7 or 8 years old, not capable to study in school. So the mother came and I said, "Hello, Mrs. Gonzalez. My name is Dr. Schultz, and I'm here to offer you and your child holistic treatment." She said, No, Mira. I want Ritalin. I'm here for you to give him Ritalin. And I'm thinking to myself, if I tell her no, I'm not going to do it, she's going to disengage. We'll never have a conversation of any kind. And the child will remain totally dysfunctional. So maybe I'll engage her, I'll give him a small dose of Ritalin, and then when she brings him back, we'll develop a relationship. Finally, I'll teach her a few things about natural treatment. So I prescribed Ritalin 5 milligrams.
But you didn't want to.
It's not that I didn't want to or I wanted to. I just knew that with this presentation, there possibly were other options. Let's put it this way. So
okay, there were alternatives.
Yeah, there could have been, and I'll talk about it in a second. So I said, okay, I'll give her a prescription for 5 milligrams of Ritalin 3 times a day for a month, and told her to bring him back, and told her to start from 1 pill a day and then gradually see how he reacts. Comes back in a week. The child is sitting in the corner reading the book. This part is not made up by me. The name is. So I tell her, what is the reason you came back? It's too early. I prescribed 5 milligrams. By now, he should have been taking 1 or 2 pills a day. She said, no, I'm not stupid. I gave him 5, it didn't work. So now I'm giving him 30. I ran out of medication. The point is that we adjusted the medication treatment. What's important to say is that in the course of a week, this person went from basically a guy who couldn't even study to a B, A+ student because of conventional medications. Speaking about alternatives, yes, there are alternatives, but if you tried them and they didn't work, what are you going to do, right? So if there is a situation that requires immediate attention, like, for example, you have a child who cannot function in the modern society, needs to be able to study in school, as a parent, you might want to help. So if you have the resources and you are educated about different alternatives, would it be homeopathy, neurobiofeedback? Some people give children vitamins. I'm not a big proponent. I just don't know enough about it. But whatever that is, then go do it. My point is not that you have to give a person medication like Ritalin or Adderall, but something needs to be done to alleviate the issue, because a person like that is totally dysfunctional.
Yeah, it's impacting their lives negatively.
Oh, to flip the coin completely, I'll tell you that when I worked on one of the psychiatric units as a resident, second-year resident at Beth Israel Medical Center, people knew that I was interested in homeopathy. We had, which is rare, a young gentleman, 18 years old, with the first break of schizophrenia, severe, violent. And he was in treatment, and he was doing well, and his parents asked to take him out for lunch. So we let them do it, and then they came back, and he stayed on the unit and attempted to stop taking his medication. So we had a family meeting with the family, and it turned out that instead of bringing him for lunch, they brought him to a herbalist who suggested to give him, instead of medication for schizophrenia, St. John's wort.
Okay, I haven't personally heard of that before.
Of course. So look, with all due respect, and I have a lot of respect. After all, I used to be a person who practiced alternative medicine almost exclusively for a while. St. John's wort is not known to help with schizophrenia. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is that without seeing a provider who is well educated in both, in this case, psychiatry and alternative medicine, and understands all the risks and benefits involved, something for us to talk about, trying things like that is kind of useless. So doing, in air quotes, research on Google is not going to bring you an appropriate understanding of what needs to be done for you.
Right, like like self-diagnosing using Google is, I guess it's at this point it's pretty well known to be a bad idea because you type in your symptoms and then the word cancer appears on the screen and then you get stuck in a hole. But
well, I have situation when people sitting in my office Google what I tell them. So, but my point is this. I do understand the hesitance of people to take medication. And I do understand why people don't come to see doctors and why they don't take medication at all. I understand it, but it doesn't make it right or wrong for any particular case. What I suggest respectfully is that if you feel or you hear from other people that you have an issue, come and see somebody.
yeah, I mean,
Just to hear an opinion. And then what I would like to offer people is my advice of how to decide whether you want to hear an opinion from this particular provider. If you like them, appreciate them, and you think that they are thoughtful and fit what you expected from them, then listen to their opinion, right? It's kind of obvious.
it's pretty simple.
Yeah, but not listening to an opinion of such a person might be a mistake. If you don't like a person right away, it just didn't click for any reason, then there is no reason to continue. But I want to bring to life one of my most favorite sayings of all times.
I think I know what it is.
Tell me.
The business of saving the person who is drowning is the person something.
No, yeah, that one would be good. But here I would like to say that if your cup is full, there is no room for more water.
Right.
Right? So if you already made up your mind, right? Nobody can give you any advice. So the hesitation is clear, and the statistics are actually pretty severe. We just presented some of them. A large number of people in the world decide from a get-go not to take any medication and try to fight. In many Russian, Chinese, Korean families, I'm just speaking from talking to people from Russia, China, Korea, you would hear from the first generation immigrants, you're not depressed, you're just making it up. Just get over it.
Right.
Be a strong person. Get out of bed. And a person cannot get out of bed.
Right, yeah, and this is also related to the stigma because there's this idea that a lot of people have that's subconscious sometimes it's more conscious, that mental, quote, illness is not like a real illness. Like it's not a real medical problem like something like diabetes.
Right.
Or hypertension. It's not the same thing. It's all in your head. And you just need to snap out of it, right?
Well, but makes it even worse if it's all in your head. Because whether you are imagining it or it's, in quotes, real, it's striking the most important part of your body.
Which is?
Your head. And the head houses your consciousness, correct, Master McMaster?
The brain.
The brain houses the consciousness. So what is more important than the brain? What is more important than to be able to enjoy your life to the fullest extent? But then people can turn around and tell me, to the fullest extent, so you'll give me Prozac and I won't be able to have sex. I agree. So we are not going to have Prozac. We are going to discuss what other options are available.
Okay. Yeah, and so one of the other side effect concerns I think that a lot of people have is becoming dependent on a substance, becoming dependent on a medication, so that like they'll either become addicted or they'll have some kind of side effects if they decide to stop taking it, or that they'll need to take a medication for the rest of their lives to feel normal.
Well, I will have to take my medication for high blood pressure until I die, and if I stop, I can die significantly faster. Am I dependent on it? Absolutely not, and I'll tell you why I say that. Dependence is defined as a situation when your entire life rotates around obtaining and using the substance to the detriment of your other important life functions. If you want to understand it clearly, look at a drunk laying on the street in New York, right?
Right. So you're talking specifically about like drug addiction.
No. But dependence means that you do not do anything else. You just do everything you possibly can to obtain the substance, and the rest of your life is not there. When you take medication, it's exactly the opposite. It helps you to regain your life. For example, I don't know whether a person is on medication or not, but a couple of days ago, there was a heavyweight boxing championship match. One of the contenders was something like 6'9", and he, many years ago, won the championship and then started doing drugs, became depressed, gained a lot of weight, was 400 pounds, didn't do anything, and then he eventually got out of it. So all this time that this person was not functional, wouldn't it be nice if somebody came and helped?
Yeah.
If they were willing.
Yeah.
But there has to be this willing component, which brings me to my second favorite thing.
The saving of the one who is drowning?
Is the business of the one who is drowning. It's a joke from one of the books in Russian. Okay.
Yes. So kind of related to this, I feel like one of the other main reasons why people are adverse to taking medication is maybe like a lack of knowledge about it. So I feel like a lot of people don't want to put, like, air quotes, unnatural substances or chemicals in their body.
So let me tell you a story, which you can read in a much larger detail with all the names and dates in one of my favorite books, which is called Listening to Prozac, written by a Harvard-educated psychiatrist who also happens to be a very good writer. It's a bestseller, written many years ago, where there is a story about a person who was a physician who was hospitalized in the 80s when Prozac was already available to then traditional inpatient psychiatric unit where medication was not used. He was a subject to daily psychotherapy, probably group psychotherapy, was severely depressed. This person owned a few hemodialysis businesses and hemodialysis.
What is that?
Hemodialysis is artificial kidney. When a person has end-stage renal...
dialysis.
Yeah.
That one makes sense.
Yeah, but in medicine we call it hemodialysis.
Okay.
Yeah. So his absence from business was very detrimental to his business. So sometime going forward, after hospitalization, the family and this person met with the treatment team, and they said that, look, how much longer is he going to stay here? They say probably up to 3 years. It totally pissed them off. He got transferred to a different place, was administered Prozac, got better in a course of a month or two, and sued the hospital where he was originally hospitalized.
For what?
For not treating him appropriately because the medication was available. He was the winner of the suitcase, and after
suitcase? This is the lawsuit.
He was a winner of the lawsuit. I'm sorry. He was a winner of the lawsuit, and ever since, doctors started prescribing medications significantly more. Because when the situation is very severe and a person cannot be functional, at this stage, medication could initiate the process of recovery significantly faster. So again, if one doesn't need to take medication, then there is no reason to take it. Although you'd be surprised how many people come to my office asking for various kinds of medications that I don't prescribe.
Like what?
Xanax, more Xanax.
That you don't prescribe?
To a person who doesn't need, no.
Oh,
to a person who needs it, yes.
Do people come in a lot asking for Adderall?
People do come asking for Adderall to enhance their performance at work, and I tell them that I do not practice cosmetic psychiatry.
Cosmetic psychiatry?
Yeah, the term coined by the author of the book Listening to Prozac. I'm telling you, it's a very good book to read.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, so I do not practice cosmetic psychiatry. I do not prescribe medication to people who don't need it.
Can I ask real quick?
Of course.
Can we define a little more specifically what you mean when you say functioning or needs it? Like, I think that might be one of the biggest disconnects, is that people don't know at what point they actually might, quote, need help. Because a lot of people can have something like depression or anxiety or ADD or something, and they're still functioning, air quotes, and that they're, living some kind of life. It might be really hard for them, but where do you put that line that they are not functioning or they need medication?
So certain things are clearly defined. If somebody presents danger to themselves or others, they can be forced to take medication. We are not talking about people like that. The next step up from that would be a person who is not suicidal, who is not dangerous to anybody, but used to be very functional, meeting with friends, going to school, let's say, or working, having a family, or just having a partner, going on vacations, enjoying their life, and now this person cannot do anything, just lays in bed literally all day. It's an effort to get out of bed, sometimes impossible. If this person feels that this is the way they want to live their lives, ethically, I don't think anybody can force them into anything.
Okay.
But if it is not the way they want to live their life, they need to understand that while chronic illnesses, I'm talking about presumably a mood disorder, whether it's depression or bipolar, I don't know. I'm making up the story, right? But I met people like that quite a bit, quite a few people with this kind of issues. Chronic illnesses have periods of worsening and improvement. They are cycling. But why wait for a year or 2 or 3 until you'll be able to get out of bed?
Yeah, I mean, that situation seems pretty clear. So that's a pretty clear example of someone who's literally not functioning, because if they're not getting out of bed, then they can't go to work. They're not leading a, quote, normal life. What about someone who does go to work, has relationships, but because like there are celebrities who, like movie stars, who they act in movies, they do red carpet events, they do all this stuff, but they still they struggle with depression and they struggle with anxiety. But they might appear functional.
It's their personal choice. I'm not here to convince anybody to do anything until and unless they want to.
So then in that sense,
nothing is going to come out of me telling people, get out of your house and come to see me. No, this is your choice. But
so in that sense, the idea of functional is really subjective to the person
subjective to the person, or if they are engaged with other people, they might think that they have responsibilities. If they have a family, for example, and all of a sudden a mother of 3 lies in bed all day and doesn't take care of her little children, I'm not talking about making money. I'm talking about just basic needs. This is a problem. But generally speaking, in my opinion, professional and just as a human being, nobody can tell anybody what to do unless they present danger either to themselves or to others.
Yeah.
But think about it. I mean, what kind of life it is to lay in bed all day? I don't know.
right now it sounds pretty good, but I have a feeling that if I did that, I would not feel like I was living my best life.
Well, you will probably spend a day or two, and you would want to be probably by the ocean, or you would want to be able to watch your Netflix. I'm talking about people who don't want any of that.
Yeah.
They do zero, nothing. About ADHD, I can tell you, it's a big issue for people around people with ADHD who stubbornly continue to try to work, spend hours getting things done that require probably a few minutes. And also, I don't know what kind of life is that, and what kind of side effects are they afraid of from treatment for attention deficit disorder. If one medication doesn't work, they can try another. And again, I'm not saying in this program or in my real professional life that everybody must take conventional medications, but do something about it. Remember the movie Kill Bill 2?
Are you talking about the line, be somebody, baby?
Yes, do something, be somebody.
That, again, I will
Just
remind
joking,
you,
just
is in
kidding.
reference to someone doing a line of cocaine.
Yeah, just kidding. Just kidding.
I know. So to follow up on that, then what do you say to people who are averse to putting, like, quote, unnatural substances or chemicals in their body? And, like, the reason they're averse to medication, like Prozac or Adderall or something, is that these chemicals have been synthesized in a lab and feel like they're introducing foreign substances in their body that's unnatural. And that's why they don't want to do it.
So I'm going to quote as close to the real text as I possibly can one of the funny emails I received from somebody from Moscow, which goes something like that. So it's okay to have half a bottle of vodka a day, eat hot dogs, eat out at McDonald's, smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, but your water has to be filtered.
Right.
All right? So think about the reality of life. Like, for example, let's start a very simple conversation about what is natural and what is unnatural. And I'm not going to talk about my favorite thing, how people went, I guess I'm talking about it, to the top of one of the Himalayan mountains and collected the snow sample, and it contained penicillin. I read it so many years ago in the magazine in the Soviet Union that was called Science and Life. I can't even find the quote, so apparently it was a very long time ago. But let's talk about a life of any female in the United States of, as they say, reproductive age. A lot of people are on a pill.
Yeah, well, there are people who don't even want to take birth control for a similar reason.
I'm with them, actually. And I can refer our listeners back to our beautiful episode with Virginia Reith, a holistic gynecologist, where she talks about what this kind of pill can do to your body. But people take them because they have to make a choice of convenience. What is more convenient, to be pregnant all the time and have abortions, or not to be pregnant and have sex? Because apparently you cannot trust your male partners, right?
So it seems.
Okay. Or what is the typical lifestyle of a millennial? I have 2 daughters who are millennials, so I know from them. They probably don't do what I'm going to say right now, but a lot of people do. Thursday night out, Friday night out, getting drunk out of your mind, all right? Smoking pot, which is, whether you are on the side that it's good for you or you're on the side that it's bad for you, it's still an active substance that affects your mind.
But
okay?
it's natural. It grows from the ground.
I don't know that pot that people obtain right now is natural.
To the people, like, in the world who think that smoking pot and drinking is fine, but that birth control and antidepressants are unnatural, is that good reasoning?
No, absolutely not. Because A, the lifestyle we all live, and I presume that people who listen to our podcast are not using supernatural abilities. They are listening to us on their cell phones.
Probably.
Right? So they are probably living in the so-called civilized, in quotes, large quotes, world, because it's not more civilized than so-called uncivilized, or less so even. But they are surrounded by technology, by the overflow of information, by environmental pollution, by informational pollution. I mean, they do need to take measures. They need to have kind of, and I hate this word, vaccine against what's going on. So some people choose to smoke pot, some people choose to drink, and some people choose to take medication. So if you are depressed and you are drinking wine or vodka, it's silly because it's making you more depressed. If you cannot concentrate and you smoke pot, it's silly because it makes you less able to concentrate. And yes, I have seen people in my office who tell me that smoking pot helps them concentrate. And then we test them and they can't. So if there is a way to treat something naturally, go get it. But how do you know that a provider who is going to tell you what to do is not going to tell you to take St. John's wort for schizophrenia, which is totally crazy.
So you think that medication is unnatural but still perfectly okay?
When it's one of the available treatment options, and I've seen in my life a large number of people who do take conventional medications and do not have any side effects. So they have only benefits. There is no downside. And I've seen, and I'll see today, a number of people who do take medication and develop side effects. Then we are going to stop this medication and give them something else.
Okay. One other big reason why a lot of people are afraid to take medication is because of this distrust in the industry. So big pharma, you know, it's a for-profit industry. What are they making? What are they doing to us? Are psychiatrists just giving us medications that they've been bribed by the big pharma to prescribe?
I have never seen in my entire professional life an attempt to bribe me or people who worked with me. And I used to run a department and was a chairman of a department. In most of the cases nowadays, drug representatives are not even allowed to talk to clinicians directly in large hospitals, and ethically, they are advised not to take people out for dinners and lunches. I've been in my life to quite a few paid presentations during American Psychiatric Association meetings, for example. There could be a dinner sponsored by a company, and they have speakers. But I don't know how any physician can benefit directly or indirectly from prescribing a particular medication or a set of medications.
Well, even the fact that they do advertise to physicians specifically, that could influence whether or not you prescribe them, right?
If you are a general practitioner and somebody comes in and talks to you about, let's say, again, a generic name Prozac, and it's kind of on your ear, maybe you'll go to it first. Psychiatrists who practice every day, of course, are not going to listen to somebody trying to tell them that a particular medication is better. We want studies. We want post-marketing studies, not only pre-marketing studies. Pre-marketing studies are done before the medication comes out. I'm extremely skeptical when it comes to brand new medications. Don't believe that they are better than old medications. And most of the medications that I personally prescribe in my practice, not on purpose, but it just happens to be, they have generics, right? So then what benefit do I have from prescribing a generic medication? I don't know. I personally don't believe that pharma is very successful in making us prescribe unnecessarily. What pharma has been successful in is to advising to a large number of providers of any given area that they produced yet another drug that can be more effective for a particular treatment.
Okay, yeah.
So then some people choose and some people don't choose to help clients who have not been responding well to medications that have been offered before. I can give you an example. In my practice, I have a number of people, let's say with major depressive disorder, who are still not doing that great and could have done better. Or I need to use multiple antidepressants to help them. I'm constantly looking for something that is going to solve the issue. But when it happens, it doesn't mean that I tell them to stop everything they're doing and start taking this medication. I actually would be more concerned about the fact that FDA standards for brand name medications, which means that, let's say, a particular pharmaceutical company has an exclusive right to produce a particular drug, are much higher than to generics.
Right.
But in my experience, I've seen only a few cases when a particular generic company didn't make as good a product as another company. And people sometimes are more sensitive to additives because when you take a large pill or a large capsule, by the way, capsules are not plastic. They are made from edibles, for example, gelatin. And then there are capsules that are vegan friendly. Some people just are more sensitive to the additives. So I would suggest to people that A, doctors don't conduct experiments on their patients. I've heard this sentiment a couple of times in my life. And B, we do not have any direct benefit from giving you a medication, other than, in my case, I would like to see my patients well, right?
Well, but so for some people, it might not necessarily be about trusting or not trusting the doctor,
Right.
but a mistrust of big pharma, because they do create these brand name medications. They market them specifically in commercials, in presentations for doctors and things like that.
But some of them are very effective, extremely effective.
Right.
So, I mean, if you want to get better, you take them. Like, for example, a field of HIV. HIV is now contained, and it's all because of big pharma. I mean, somebody sponsored the development of medications, right? People paid a lot of money, but now there are HIV prophylactic medications. It's doing a lot of good to people. Or, for example, people used to die from pneumonia left and right, and then penicillin was discovered, which was expensive, and then streptomycin also was expensive.
Right. No, certainly, I mean, big pharma has
Right.
made a lot of advancements. So we've talked about why people are averse to medication just from the outset,
Right.
and sort of the skepticism sort of going into a doctor's visit, right?
Right.
So what about people who have actually given medication a chance? They come, they get a prescription, and then, they start taking that medication.
So, again, the statistics are not that great. A large proportion of people, after they've been prescribed a medication, choose either not to take the full amount. I'm talking about not to take all the medications that have been prescribed, because frequently physicians prescribe more than one medication at the time. And also, very frequently people decide to take less of the medication that they've been offered during the appointment. So, for example, according to statistics, overall, 31.3% of prescriptions were never filled. So think about
Jesus.
it. Okay? And I'm not talking about psychiatry. I'm talking about everything. For example, according to one of the studies, prescriptions for headaches and migraines were filled more than half the time, but only 20% for bronchitis and 25% for skin irritation.
Weird.
People under age 52 were much less likely to fill their prescriptions than older people. So why does that happen? Because people have second thoughts. And as a physician, I have to think about what I could have done wrong. And I can tell you that I try to spend an ample amount of time discussing with my clients, why am I suggesting, not telling them what to do, suggesting to take a particular medication, and to discuss with them different options. Not everyone has a luxury to spend this amount of time because of the way their practice is set up. Mm-hmm. And not all the clients are willing to listen to what the physician have to tell them, because they'd rather Google it and get scared, because awful, terrible side effects are listed for anything you want.
Yeah.
I suggest to anybody who is skeptical about it, check out the name of their contraceptive pill and go online and check every possible side effect. Or if you have a tendency to take Advil or Tylenol, again, generic names, meaning they're brand, but it's just a nickname for me, or an aspirin, go and check out what they can potentially cause. I mean, it's a scary list of stuff.
Yeah.
So people get lost in this ocean of information. One of the Russian comedians said that the internet is a cesspool of information.
Yeah, that sounds right. Or at least Reddit is.
Yeah. So on the side of a person who is on the receiving end, I can tell you that when I go and see a physician, and it happens in my life quite frequently, and as I'm getting older more and more frequently, I actually listen to what they have to tell me and do it kind of blindly, but guess what? I pre-selected my providers. I know them for years. I check I check not only their classifications, but when I come, I kind of interview them and see whether I like them or not, whether they seem to be reasonable and thorough or not.
So you trust them?
Yes.
Yeah, that's important.
So first I trust them, then I listen to them. And if I don't trust them, I don't continue.
Yeah.
And I advise our listeners to do exactly the same.
Yeah. Okay, so to wrap things up,
Right.
do you think that people should be afraid to take medication?
No, absolutely not. But people need to be afraid to make uninformed or poorly informed decision. And I know that it became a mantra, and we spoke about it, you and I, many times. But I'm sorry I have to repeat this mantra. You need to have somebody who is qualified to discuss with you what decision you should make. You need to sound it off, right? Mm-hmm. You cannot fall in love or hate a particular set of substances on a purely emotional level. Although it can happen, you need to find somebody who you trust and at least have a discussion at least one time of A, do you or don't you have a diagnosis you gave yourself?
Right.
And if you do, then what this person with experience thinks is a good solution.
Right.
And then after you feel that you've been informed and you can process, then you can think about it a little bit more and make a final decision.
Okay, so one of the takeaways then, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that a lot of the fear of taking medication
Right.
is really, unfortunately, just grounded in misinformation.
Or scary stuff that came your way from the media or from people you know.
Which is also, like misinformation.
Yeah, but somebody could have gone to have a tooth extraction and die. It happens,
Yeah.
right? I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I've seen it in my life. I mean, I haven't seen how it happens in real life, but I've seen reports about it, right? Or somebody can take an aspirin and die. It's possible, but you have to weigh. My main advice, weigh risks versus benefits. We suggest it all the time. We talk about it all the time. And then you can make a decision.
And then, as I feel like that's something that a lot of people do feel like they're doing, and it seems like the risks outweigh the benefits. But so I think maybe we want to encourage more careful evaluation of the risks.
Yes, and also I want to encourage you to do the following. If you decide that you want to get, in quotes, natural treatment, you need to find a specialist who has good qualifications in the field and not just a random person. And that includes good qualifications in the field for which you are seeking help. Like, for example, if you come to a psychiatrist for treatment, and psychiatrist is experienced, had appropriate training, it's one thing. But if you come to talk to your neighbor about whether or not you have to take Prozac or Zoloft, it's not a very smart decision. So
yeah.
If you come to see an herbalist or a homeopath who is not trained in medicine or not trained in psychiatry, it's not a very good idea. I'll make it very ridiculous, but would you really want a psychiatrist to prescribe you medication for OBGYN or for urological problems or for pneumonia? Probably not, but we are trained physicians. I've been to the residency training, but I don't remember, and most importantly, I don't do it every single day in and out. I don't have experience. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Any words of wisdom you'd like to leave people with?
Yes. Keep your options open. Discuss them.
Love it.
And keep your brains open, of course.
Yes.
Until the next time, signing off, I'm Dr. Schultz.
I'm Master McMaster.
Goodbye, Earthlings.
Goodbye. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of BrainStorm 9000. If you like us, love us, or marginally tolerate us, hey, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever the hell you listen to your podcasts.